Hello, I'm doing this video for a friend of mine, but I think it's so beneficial to share my experience with you guys, right? As some of you guys know, I've had chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia for 6.5 years, and some of you guys maybe don't know, I graduated with a Master's in Structural Engineering in 2009, and as part of that research project, I had to test the strength of concrete walls, and so as part of that we were like sawing part of the walls and then testing the strength and all that. And during that time I was covering my nose like during the sawing process with some material, but I had nowhere near sufficient proper breathing apparatus. And you know, straight after we'd finished sawing, I would take the material away from my nose, and yeah, the air was still full of these concrete particles that have silica in them and cement particles with, you know, chromium-4 and all this just toxic shit, and just this minute dust particles that I should not have been breathing in like as much as I was. And very quickly my lungs, I had big problems with my lungs, right, and I had to actually stop participating in the sawing of those walls and wait for all the dust to clear before I could participate in assisting in the testing of them. So anyway, so after that, like I said, I had more problems with my lungs, but when I contracted the chronic fatigue syndrome fibromyalgia shortly after I finished my Masters, my lung problem got so much worse. It was unbelievable. I just seemed to have no tolerance to any kind of like, once my mum used a mosquito coil and I totally couldn't breathe after that the next day. I didn't realise what the smell was while I was breathing it in, and then like I said, I just could hardly breathe the next day. And I noticed like just driving in the car on a dusty road, I just couldn't tolerate any dust in my environment, and like if I was trying to put hay on the gardens, just the dust from the hay, I'd just cough my guts out, and every day my breathing was laboured and I was physically exhausted every day from just being shit aggravating me in my environment, like dust and particles. And anyway, I took the initial steps I took to trying to help my lungs. I saw a specialist and he diagnosed me with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, bordering on emphysema, right? So I was thinking, right, and so the first initial steps I made was I just got rid of all my synthetic fibres out of my environment. So all my bedding is cotton, and see, my parents actually changed the floor to a wooden floor because there was carpet in here before. And the other thing, like I said, I changed to a low-fat, high-carb vegan diet, and that helped a lot too, actually. Well, no. It helped. It didn't help a lot. Didn't help as much as you'd expect it to help, but it, you know, I think it obviously helped, right? But it wasn't like hugely obvious. It didn't make a huge change, right? But, you know, it was better than not doing anything, right? To change to natural fibres and that. Anyway, I was still struggling with my lungs, and like I was like, I think, I don't know how many months exactly it was, but I was coughing for like every single day for like 5 months at least, every single day, coughing my guts out, just totally exhausted with the coughing, and I couldn't get full breath. It was just hell. It was total hell on top of all the other chronic fatigue syndromes and fibromyalgia symptoms that I had. So I don't know, I think my doctor recommended an air purifier to me. I was like, yeah, that probably doesn't really work. But I just got to one point. One night, you can see I got a light over there, and I was reading something, and I looked through the light beam, and I saw all these minute particles in the air, and I thought, that shit must be coming from my bedding. Like, even though I'm using natural fibres, there's still stuff coming out of my bedding, just all these small particles. And I thought, that cannot be good for my lungs, breathing that stuff in every night, so for 8 hours a night, right? So I got to the point when one night, and I was just like struggling with my breathing during the night even. It was just hell. I'd wake up in the morning, I was so choked up. So I decided to bite the bullet and buy an air purifier. So I did all this research, and you know, I found these bullshit ones that, you know, use negative ions and all this crap and radiation to attract the negative ions, and I thought, I'm not fucking sleeping with that shit in my room. So, and then there were other ones that were just full of plastic made by all these companies, and I just thought, oh no. So I finally found this company, this Australian company, and I don't work for them and I don't get any discounts for promoting them, but I just think their product kick ass, right? So it's called Inova Air, okay, and like so I rang up the owner of this company and I totally drilled him, right? And I just quizzed him like there was no tomorrow. And I bought the cheapest unit he sold at the time. It's an over-air E7, right? And like, you look at this, right? So that goes over that, sucks the air in there, spits it out here, it spits the clean air out here, and this does an area of 20 square meters, okay? So it does my bedroom, and you look at that, like, I'm going to change the air purifier. I think it's been in for 7 months, but you're supposed to change the pre-filter once every 6 months, the post-filter once every year, and then this HEPA filter once every 5 years, right? And so you look at the clean one, and you look at how dirty that is, right? And so that is just from my bedding, right, and my clothes and shit. Like, that's amazing, just sucking that out of the air. And you think, I used to breathe that shit in every night, right, for 8 hours a night. Like, it's so bad. And you look at my fan, like, even though I'm using that filter, my fan is still, look, sucking stuff out of the bedding, like, through the fan. So it's just a lot worse than you realize, okay? So I bought this filter. I think it was $600 plus shipping, plus then I bought an extra couple of spare filters, right? So, and the pre-filters, these are at the moment $25, and I replace them once every 6 months. That's $22, and I replace that once every year. And like I said, I don't know, I think these are a couple of $100, and they're replaced once every 5 years. So anyway, it costs me about $75 a year at the moment to run this air purifier in terms of changing the filters. And so what happened was, when I started using the filter, like after 2 months, like, whereas I was physically exhausted every day just from struggling with my breathing and stuff, suddenly I could breathe easier. And I just noticed a huge change. I mean, a huge change compared to the changes I noticed just with changing my bedding and changing my diet, right? And then, like, after 4 months, like, whereas it was a huge issue every day, avoiding dust and chemicals and everything, suddenly 4 months later it was like hardly an issue to me at all. Like, and I wasn't laboured with my breathing anymore, and I just couldn't believe it. It was like a miracle that this piddly little thing could be so effective, right? And I just realised the way it must be working is that it's just reducing the overall load on my lungs every night for 8 hours a night, the amount of particles that I'm breathing in, so that my lungs are much more tolerant during the day of dealing with the shit that I breathe in during the day. Obviously, I still try to minimise I still try to avoid dust and chemicals in my environment, but this air purifier I just can't believe how much of a difference it has made to my lungs, whereas now I don't even feel like I have a lung issue. Like, my lungs were always sore too. Like, I'd cough and I'd get this pain in my lungs. Like, they'd just be so raw, you know. But I haven't had that for ages now. Probably even a year or even more. I just don't remember the last time I had that, where my lungs felt so raw and wounded, actually. So now, it's this over-air, this E7 is quieter than my fan to run, and I run it on 1 every night. So I turn it on at 6 p.m. and I leave it on all night, and I turn it off at, like, when I get up in the morning. And it's really cheap to run. Like, if I run it on 1 all night, it uses the same amount of electricity as an energy efficient light bulb, okay? So that's, like, really cheap. I'd say this is cheaper to run than the fan, okay? So, I've got a friend who's got emphysema. He struggles like I did with my lungs like crazy, right? And I told him about an air purifier, I told him, and he just wouldn't listen. I just couldn't believe it. Like, you know, yeah, whatever, no. And he's got wool floors, and, you know, I said, like, seriously, I told him my experience. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And you should have seen the shit he was trying to do for his emphysema. Like, he bought like a $400 blender, and he started, like, drinking hydrogen fucking peroxide every day, trying to clear out his lungs, because this woman on the coast who had emphysema was doing that to help her lungs. Like, that shit, I've seen people fucking kill themselves with that hydrogen peroxide, like totally destroy their inner sides from drinking that shit, but you couldn't tell him. I couldn't tell him, so I just had to let it go, you know. But it's so sad, like you just can't believe how helpful the air purifier is, okay? So, and like this little unit, like it is one of the best investments I have made since I have contracted chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia, right? And just, like I said, the lung issue isn't even a lung issue anymore, coming from dominating my life, and it's all because of this air purifier. Mostly, and then, you know, a small contribution from my clean diet, which obviously helps, and using natural fibres. Okay, so thanks for watching. I hope this has been helpful, and I'll see you later.